Okay, our next speaker, starting with the first AusCERT conference in 2002, he's become a fixture at AusCERT events, speaking on topics including securing mobility, securing higher education. He serves as CyberCX's executive director of capability, security, testing, and assurance. Prior to this, he co-founded Assurance in 2005 and served as its managing director until 2020, when Assurance officially joined CyberCX. So a platinum presentation from CyberCX, being our own giants. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Neal Wise.
So let's see if I can manage to share my screen. And right, I assume that's visible for everyone. Hi everyone, welcome to this presentation of mine at AusCERT. I had a nice introduction there. You know who I am. I sort of realized when I was going through a bunch of pictures for this presentation just how weird my life is. That I had a huge arrangement of Nerf toys followed immediately by me wearing a tux for some reason. So there you go. As mentioned, I've been at AusCERT a number of years. We've run a bunch of wireless tutorials, took people out war driving in a bus several times. Have talked about higher education and high performance computing security risks. But before all of this sort of stuff, I was you know, a young miscreant hacker as a kid, this is me in about 1990, and I was moving towards what was going to be a career in IT. I knew in all likelihood, but I got excited about these sort of networking things, and went to school in the UK for a year, and got to use some more real networks, and came back and helped with my small state in America, Arkansas, bringing it into the internet age. So part of that for me was this. I've decided to show a bunch of old origin pictures for me. This is, I love skating, I love punk music, and I love Unix. And this was my job getting public television in Arkansas onto the internet in 93, 94, 95. And that eventually, though, led me to Australia. And in rural America, there weren't really a lot of opportunities for, you know, face-to-face meeting people in hacker communities. So it was something that was challenging for me when I moved to Australia to even know how to start finding people. And I looked around in the sort of Unix and security communities and professional communities, and realized that you know, I had a lot of different interests with it as a business hacker, and working in the sort of staid IBM world, looking like this fella here, with my proper IBM blue shirt. And so this is what led me to Australia. It was this box that's behind me there, which is an R6000, IBM R6000 SP. It's a parallel systems platform. And the tape drive to my left was another thing that led me here, which is 3494 tape drives. So I did, I guess, a high performance, what was then called scientific computing application, computing. And really, what a lot of we were doing was consolidating Unix platforms in 98, 99 as part of year 2000 onto these platforms that really were meant for better things. So if you worked on one of these types of systems or had one in Australia at this time, I probably installed it, or I trained the people who did. So it was something that I got across when I was working at a telephone company in the States. But so what I found was when I went looking for hacker communities, all that really was around Victoria was 2600, which was great, but I was significantly older than everybody who was going to 2600, and decided that they were all going to get me in trouble in some way. Which is funny because I now see them all as 30-something-year-old adults. So I went around the traps of the different Unix-related users groups. And the common one was IBM's, which also then became Interaction later. But I did a lot of presentations at Sage in sort of 98, 99 on hardening AIX and using AIX as a secure application platform. And that led me to join the Australian Unix Users Group, which I knew I wanted to be part of when I moved to Australia. And I had similarly had a similar understanding of AusCERT as well, because of many of us who worked in the Unix space in the 90s were familiar with AusCERT's origins as I guess CERT and SERT, and their advice on how to put secure banners, for example. Like that was an advisory they sent out in 1993. But this is what I sort of viewed as the proto thing that led me to AusCERT, the conference, and led me to AusCERT, the community of people who attend the conference. I was invited through participating in the Australian Unix Users Group to present, or I submitted, I can't really remember, it was 2001, to the AusCERT Symposium. And at the very bottom of this, which you may be able to see, it says, wow, and I'm thinking about now how you're looking at this your screen. If you have it full screen, you can see that it says Wireless and Security, Neal Wise. But if you look further up, you'll see a lot of other names of people that you might recognize and people that you know from the AusCERT community. Like there's Gary Gaskell, there's Mike Cohen. Okay. If I'll just really just summarize this, since I'm not expecting you to read this tiny text. But basically, on this list is the names of a number of people that this is the first time I've encountered some of them, met some of them. Mark Ames, Gary Gaskell, Dr. Michael Cohen, but also people from AusCERT like Mark McPherson and Jamie Gillespie, who had recently joined AusCERT at that time. Many of us got to know each other then throughout the year of 2001 and 2002, because many of us went to do in 2002 was the first time the CISSP was offered in Australia, and a bunch of us all sat that together. So there's a number of us who knew each other from this sort of period of time, and every name on here just jumps out at me. Like I see Rory Brown, Bob Edwards from ANU, oh really? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Jamie, I didn't know he's on here. Yeah. So I remember when we took the CISSP, Jamie, and you stayed for a good hour after we were done, doing us all the solid of writing up, complaining about how terrible the questions were. I remember that. So, so that led us to that led us to AusCERT 2002. Many of the people who were presenting at the AUG Security Symposium, and this was even the second security symposium that AUG had run, presented at AusCERT 2002. There had been some other security events around. There was a SANS event in 1999 that a lot of us went to. So it's yeah, like I really get nostalgic about AusCERT, the organization, the community of people who attend the events, and the things that we all sort of get up to. So another thing that's probably very hard to read, but it's a list for the very first AusCERT conference in 2002. There was a number of speakers who I believe were probably more invited speakers, and then there were those of us who did the tracks. And here's the first tracks of the first track parts of AusCERT. And of course, you can't read that because my font's changed. But this is the first track presentations, and it's Andrew Vanderstock and Rob McMillan and me on these, and it's and Michael Cohen and Bill Cayley, and like there's all these people who I know and knew like across security in Australia that we all had started sort of running into each other then. So here we are, right here. This was everybody who presented, and this is also impossible to read. Yeah. And what was something for me here too on this, if I go back here, the three of us are presenting after SPAF, like Eugene Spafford, who was a keynote, which is just amazing. So yeah, so on that, I was really thinking about then and now, and this is something that's always fun to do with security, and also apparently with formatting fonts, since defensive is a little bit scaly there. But nothing really changes, and we all know this, and you know that this is probably where I was going right here. So yeah, George Kurtz, I taught for Foundstone, so George, like they were over as our partner when I was at ESEC. Yeah, yeah, so I wanted to really like draw the same nostalgia out for you. Like I started to draw a nice thought leadery thing where I compared then versus now and how nothing's really changed, but it's all changed. Now it's just more nuance and subtlety. Yeah, that's true. But more than that, I looked at this and started looking at pictures, and I just remembered just how much I even though there were lots of daggy things about Royal Pines, especially before it was redone by RCV, it was definitely a place that I look forward to every year. You know, I didn't play golf, so I didn't miss golf Sundays. But yeah, hey, look at this, the tennis court. You know, I really feel that that would have actually been made more interesting by having an actual live game of tennis while we were out there eating every day. But yeah, the sort of rubbery chicken here and on the tennis court, this has now been at least 15-year joke between me and Chris Gatford. But there's friends I also see and only see generally at AusCERT. Like there's Pat Gray, there's a bunch of the uni security folk who I hang out with, people who are of UTAS and ex-UTAS and Latrobe. And then we got, you know, always got up to sort of ridiculous things, but in a nice, tame sort of way. So we gathered up all the balloons, and this was the only picture I had of a few balloons on the ceiling. I remember by the end of that night, we had a massive wad of balloons in the ceiling because you give a bunch of us balloons, we're going to act like this. So, but yeah, so it's just the events going out. Like I think this is at on the right hand side is a movie world when we would have offsite dinners and that, and also to, like all security conferences, everybody makes their own event. And so AusCERT for me, this was like, this is the next level. Like if I really want to get my proper Bond villain on, it is you've got to at least turn up with 3 pretty sweet helicopters to pick up people. So Kaspersky wins that. But we also had a lot more fun too, like as part of this is one of assurances, and this is a bit of a now it can be told. So we learned a lot about the building AV system, like the entertainment system in the rooms. And even just this IP address here, this 106024, I know that that's on level 20 of that building because we worked, you know, they did some really smart numbering in that. So we, you know, created a bunch of address conflicts and just generally played around. But we kept escalating this, and we brought mice with us, we brought keyboards with us each year to add to trying to look at this. So what we actually found out was that it's a pretty complicated little DOCSIS modem. It has two connections, and it actually did multicast streams. Yeah, and here it is, Peter, the tank, exactly. So everybody has their own AusCERT, and that was definitely a spectacular stunt by my buddy Chris. For that, I always tend to hang out with the people in the back of the rooms who were just busy staring at their phones and on Twitter. Yeah, I put this person playing Where's Waldo or Wally up here for us, who was with one of the vendors, just because this particular vendor, we had done a bunch of reverse engineering on the client application and worked out that there's a function that allows you to submit debug information to a central server for them. And it turned out it just did it over FTP. So we sniffed the username and password, and we tweeted that password in this picture at the vendor during AusCERT. And yeah, they really respond. That's fair enough. But even just like getting to the Gold Coast, there was always that you know, do I stay at Royal Pines, or do I stay on the Gold Coast? Because if I stay at Royal Pines, then I'm going to get into the Gold Coast if I want to do stuff, and vice versa. And we would swap back every year because it was always, whatever we did was always the wrong thing. Many years I stayed in what I think is a Holiday Inn now, but we would look out onto the Slingshot and mini golf place out here, and it was just like having somebody just scream, you know, every 15 minutes as they're being flung around with that till about 11 p.m. every night. It was a little unsettling, but yeah, I really like a lot of tacky things and neat things about the Gold Coast. There's just strange events that would coincide with AusCERT. There was the year that there was the furry conference after AusCERT. So we all wandered down there, and like, can you imagine wearing one of these fursuits out on a beach in the sand? Well, here they were all doing it, and they all had minders carrying them around and that. And yeah, so I got a picture of me and my wife and Darren Pauly and his wife in the heat, exactly, hanging out with furries. So, you know, they were having a good time. Like, I love subcultures, so you know, good for them. But as always, we were walking away from there, and we swung past McDonald's. We're walking past it, saw what is blood in the water for hackers. Like, oh my gosh, it's crash, you know. So took some pictures here. I love that I can see. I hope this comes through that you can see Darren reflected in this picture, just because. Yeah. So on that, 2018 AusCERT. Two, playing around with the machine that you use to print your badge and that. And it's like, oh, well, whoops, pop the calc. Okay. so, and yeah, so, then we're moving away from Royal Pines and back to the Marriott, because that was where that hotel was, where the first AusCERT was. I really like these little creatures who come out and join you when you're sitting there having a drink, and they would just sneak out, and but I figure they also put drinks and lunch on your room, or going to the airport and messing with the people who are picking people up. This is one of my customers. He was being picked up, and so I decided I'd wait around to see if they turned up, and I saw still at a distance. Yeah, so I guess really what I'm sort of getting at is that we all make our own fun, and we are who we are, and we are who we were, and so we can always be our own giants, because standing on the shoulders of giants makes us how we all build on progress and what we do, so I threw a couple of mixtures of some security, proper security consultant aphorisms here, as well as some beliefs that I sort of follow by as well. Yeah, I really hope that everyone is managing to cope well with this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone next year at AusCERT. And we're really, if we're always around, and we're always happy to catch up and chat. Like those of us from this community, I'm looking forward to seeing people who I really only see around the AusCERT community again coming up. But thank you very much.
That was absolutely wonderful stuff, Neal. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The chat line is going wild with people reliving the memories, posting old conference websites and things like that. What a ride it's been. Rubbery chicken on the tennis court, balloons on the ceiling, and the Kaspersky chopper. Neal, sincere thanks, Neal. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Isn't it great in 2020 to look back and think about the journey, both physical and metaphorical, that we've all been on? And as Laura points out, next May will therefore be the 20th AusCERT. Quick little update I can tell you, bringing you now very much into the current day, the Uber Eats vouchers are now good to go. Apologies for that small glitch this afternoon. Our conference organisers have been in consultation with Uber Eats all afternoon. If you did put your name down for the gala dinner tonight, the $20 voucher should be operational now, so knock yourself out. And a little update on the very popular Lucas, are you married question. Unfortunately, the conference moderators went through and scrubbed all previous questions before my request could get through to them. Could they please leave that one up for the rest of the conference? Because at the time that they scrubbed it, there were 82 people had upvoted Lucas, you married, which is great. But if you think about it, there were almost 400 people on at that stage, and so that means that 82 had asked, and that was barely 20%. And so how does Paul Lucas feel, thinking that maybe only 20% of people are interested in whether he's married or not? So I've just asked the question again. Go to the Q&A there and see if we can't get at least half of the 380 people now. So I want 190 or more. I want a majority of people now watching to be interested in whether Lucas is married. Spoiler, yes, he has. Says he's got a wonderful wife, but that's not important. That's not the reason we're doing it. Neal, oh dear. Now someone's asked, Neal, are you married? All things getting trouble. It's like AusCERT 2020 has turned into Love Island. Okay,